Let's see. Hi, everyone. We'll just wait a couple minutes so people can log in. We lost Joanna.
I'm here, Jennifer. I'm just gonna grab the water, but go ahead and get started.
Okay, I will. Okay. Good morning. Thanks for everybody for joining us. My name is Jennifer Myers, and I'm with the Economic Development Department. Today, we want to give you an overview of an existing program we're working on, the Business Finance Finder. We also are seeking input to improve it, so feel free to submit any questions or comments during the webinar. We are recording this webinar, and we will send a link as well as the PowerPoint presentation to anybody that's registered for this event. So let's go ahead and get started. Here's a quick summary of our meeting agenda. We'll discuss an overview of the project. We're going to highlight the recovery team and their roles, and we're also going to delve into the Business Finance Finder. And we want to try to, and what we're trying to accomplish with it. And we also would like to introduce you to our consulting firm, M Street X, and who will be building the platform. I would like to use this opportunity to do a brief overview of the Economic Development Department. Our Cabinet Secretary is Alicia J. Keys, and Deputy Cabinet Secretary is John Clark. We have several divisions in the Economic Development Department, which includes film, outdoor rec, and industry, just to name a few. And now I'll introduce you to Joanna Nelson, who's the Strategic Programs Manager, to give a background on the EDA grant and project overview. Go ahead, Joanna.
Great, thank you so much, Jennifer. Thanks to all for tuning in right now and sharing your time with us. We're really excited to share the things that we're working on and get your feedback on them. But before we begin, it's really important to see where this initiative fits into the bigger scope of a project that we're calling the EDA CARES project. And then I want to ask too, if for the panelists, if you could put your audio on mute. We're hearing a little bit of feedback. And Rabia, who's a panelist, just informed us that she has some quails hatch, and so I hope we're lucky to hear the quails in the background later. But thank you for that. So anyway, this is a picture of the bigger scope of what we're working on. And so hopefully today you'll be able to see where this initiative fits into the whole scheme of things. So the funding that we received from Economic Development Administration back in the summer as a part of the CARES Act enabled us to hire a team that we're calling the recovery team. And they really are the motor, they are the capacity that's enabling us to really build out these efforts and actually get some stuff done. And then in our proposal and in this bigger project, we have two components that we're really focusing on in terms of our recovery response due to the impacts of COVID. And so those two components are, one of them is the statewide plan that's in progress right now. And so that's looking at a short-term recovery plan, it's looking at midterm, and it's also looking at long-term economic diversification and strategies that pertain to 9 targeted industries. And so that's in progress. I'm sure many of our stakeholders are informed and participating in that effort as well. And then the other component, the other bucket, is how do we look at access to capital? How do we empower, how do we enable our businesses, our communities, our projects to get the capital that they need in order to recover, to expand, to grow, to thrive? And so this initiative that we're talking about today is the Business Finance Finder, and that is within this component of access to capital. So hopefully you can get the big picture and understand where this initiative fits within this bigger project that is in progress right now.
All right, next, I'd like to introduce you to our newly formed recovery team. Our newest team members are myself, Jennifer Myers. I'm the statewide disaster recovery coordinator, and my focus is economic recovery through direct outreach and help to coordinate efforts to facilitate business growth. And also, I'll be working specifically with the Business Finance Finder as well. The second member of my team is Felicia DePaula. She's the Program Development Specialist, and she's overseeing the statewide plan as well as the Rural Efficient Business Program. The next person of our team is Alex Greenberg. He's our Financial Program Specialist, and he's the point person for any of the funded projects as well as opportunity zones. Now, we do have a fourth member of our team that's currently being hired right now, so stay tuned. They'll be the Economic and Energy Diversification Coordinator. And then Shawnee Harvey is our Justice, Equity, and Diversity and Inclusion Coordinator, or JEDI, as I like to say, because it's a little bit easier to say. So stay tuned on when we get our Economic Energy Diversification Coordinator. I'm very excited about that. So I'll go ahead and pass it along to Joanna to discuss the Business Finance Finder and its purposes.
Thank you. So before we get M Street X on to talk about how they are helping us to improve this platform, we thought it'd be helpful if we can give you some insight into why we want to create this platform and improve it and build it out, and a little bit of the backstory. So continually we hear and we heard, especially during the pandemic, about challenges and barriers from businesses and communities. And we heard from their experiences why they weren't able to get a loan, find grant funding, and find the resources that they need to thrive and to respond to the pandemic. A lot of what we do at EDD is around providing information and making connections to businesses and communities for resources. So I think it was about 2 years ago, we had we started this Business Finance Finder initiative because we constantly are hearing from the lenders, we're hearing from the financial programs that they have money, they're looking for projects, and then we also hear from the businesses and communities that they're looking for money. So there's definitely a gap in those connections. So how can we at EDD have a platform that we're helping to facilitate and support those connections? And so we had this very much DIY, do it yourself. In fact, Ty, being the software engineer, please don't be too harsh on us when you look at and Rabia too, when you look at the site, because it's very much beta, initial stage, and we'll look into that a little bit more. But we had this attempt at if we can just make the connections, hopefully that will facilitate some of these projects in getting the capital and the resources that they need. Okay, next slide, Jennifer, please. This is a look at our wonderful, the best we could do, our best attempt at starting this initiative. And I think Rabia is going to go in a little bit more depth, because the reality is we never really marketed this portion. We put it up on the site as a test to see what type of response we could get, or see if it was helpful. And we also, there's also a component of this effort as well. As you all know, especially in rural areas, internet and connectivity issues can be a barrier oftentimes. And so we also engaged in in-person events prior to COVID. So we would host events where we invited all of the financial programs in the area and the region to come into one place. We invited the public, businesses that had questions, entrepreneurs, folks that were curious about starting a business. And there at those events, that's where we saw these in-person connections being made. And so we've got this kind of in-person, and right now it's currently virtual that we're hosting around the state. And then we've got this online component of ways that we're trying to facilitate and make connections for folks. And then next slide. And And that's where M Street X comes in. And that's where the EDA funding is really helping us to improve this initiative. Take this very, honest attempt at creating an online platform, and we're bringing in the experts to be able to improve and deliver something that can be very valuable and helpful, not only to businesses and communities that are looking for funding, but also our funding partners, also our business assistance providers as well. And so the whole idea is that we will be able to address the challenges that exist out in the market, especially what we've seen over the pandemic, those challenges that were really exacerbated. They were already in existence, and then they were really exacerbated because of the pandemic, especially in underserved markets, disadvantaged demographics. And so we want to create a platform that attempts to mitigate some of those barriers and those challenges. And so there you have this idea of how can we kind of equalize the playing field. And again, we have no misconceptions that this tool will be a solve-all, end-all solution, but it definitely, we're hopeful that it can be one part of a much bigger solution and help our site work better and get some success. So we're hopeful that it will connect resources, technical assistance, and capital to businesses. So that's it on my end, Jennifer, and I know we're really eager to hear from M Street X to talk about what it will look like and how it will work.
Absolutely. Yes, I'm thrilled to introduce to you David Rickster. He is the CEO of M Street X. So I'll transition it to you, David. David, you're on mute.
I was talking and I thought you all could hear me. Let me start over. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Joanna. Thank you, everyone in New Mexico. We are grateful to be here and grateful to be supporting you. I thought I would take this time just to kind of set the stage and provide a little bit of context for all of you. This relationship with New Mexico didn't start just a couple of weeks ago or a couple of months ago. This has been an evolving relationship that started back during the Great Recession back in 2011. I was part of the U.S. Department of Treasury State Small Business Credit Initiative, and that initiative provided access to capital to every EDO within the United States, including territories. At that time, I was your outreach or your portfolio manager in the state of New Mexico and also about 17, 18 other states and territories. So I had the distinct honor of traveling to Santa Fe, Albuquerque, and across the United States, trying to understand those challenges that were impacting small businesses and how we at the federal government level could provide access to capital, including technical assistance to support small business growth and build vibrant economic entrepreneurial ecosystems. During my travels at Treasury, visiting cities and states, I started to see similarities. I started to see that systems and functions were all siloed. And we would hold meetings and convenings, and I would hear the same conversations over and over again. I'm not aware of these tools and these resources that are out there. And so how could we as a collective at Treasury work with the states to support small business growth and entrepreneurship? So we would hold meetings across the country discussing the importance of inclusive entrepreneurship, bringing all the actors of the entrepreneurial ecosystem in a convening to ensure that everyone was aware of what was going on within their local environments, but also to share best practices and knowledge. Let me fast forward now to 2020. In 2020, we know what happened. COVID-19 happened, and we were not prepared. At that time, I decided that I would reconvene my U.S. Treasury portfolio, including CDFIs, National Governors Association, the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, and other actors within the entrepreneurial ecosystem to hold convenings or Zoom meetings at the time to discuss how we as a collective, as a community of practice, could do more to support small businesses. Also understanding that the most underserved communities, including women, rural, minorities, are disproportionately not connected to the resources and the tools that are available out there. So we were basically challenged. And I remember having these conversations and folks saying, David, we need something that can connect us all. And so insert MStreetX. We designed a fintech platform that would connect all resources to one another to ensure that people had tools, had a platform to ensure that capital and technical assistance and academia were all available. Understanding that everyone knows that there's sources and tools available, but how do you connect them all? And the best way that we could do that at that time was to design a platform. So understanding that the pandemic, as Joanna said, exacerbated all those systemic challenges that were already out there, we wanted to do more. MStreetX was designed to democratize access to resources, including capital and technical assistance. And so I'm extremely excited that we have designed a tool that can support New Mexico in its entrepreneurial ecosystem. We have a moral and economic imperative to ensure that everyone has access to the tools and resources. If we want to stay globally competitive as a nation, it is our goal, it is our mission to ensure everyone is aware of the tools and resources that are available. At MStreetX, we think bold, we are innovative, and we want to take on this challenge to support all communities, specifically the underserved. So our team of superheroes include Dr. Tyrone Grandinson, who is our CTO. To the right of me, we have our COO, Rabia Piacentini, and also our CFO, Bill Sanborn. Our board of directors include Clifton Talbert. I encourage you all after this webinar, pardon me, to look up Clifton Talbert. He is a gem, he is a source, he is, I would just say, full of wisdom, and we are lucky to have him. We also have Neil Sahada as well as one of our board directors. Neil Sahada is the United Nations AI advisor, and we are very grateful that we have him supporting us as well. So I just wanted to just provide you a brief overview and provide some context that MStreetX is here to support you. We have been working with you behind the scenes since 2011, and we're so grateful to have this opportunity to support the Business Finance Finder now. And with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to my team, Rabbi and Ty, who will dive in deeper with the Business Finance Finder. Thank you all.
Just want to make sure everybody can hear me. That was a wonderful introduction, Dave. Thank you. Essentially, as Dave mentioned, Johanna and New Mexico as a whole reached out to us to go over the Finance Finder. And in doing so, we wanted to cast a wide net as possible and get feedback from as many small businesses, lenders, and just unheard voices as well as possible, and gathering that feedback to develop a new and improved Finance Finder tool for New Mexico. I just want to make sure that I can share my screen, if it's all right if I go through the current edition of the Finance Finder. Give me 1 second. There we go. All right. All right. I want to make sure that, let's see. And Ty, if you want to unmute yourself as well so that we can walk through this together. I'm kind of having issues with the control. There we are. Okay, perfect. So can everybody see this particular screen?
Yep.
Beautiful. Okay. As Johanna mentioned earlier, the tool itself is in its primordial stages, so to speak, and it's currently somewhat tangled within several other pieces on the economic development website. And what, through many discussions, we felt that it was best that it should be a standalone tool, just so that people are able to go to it directly and have no other pieces convoluting the process of it currently. And so right now, there are these two pieces where you can submit your project, which essentially looks like a basic application. You go through, put in your information as far as, you know, the address, where you're located, how long you've been in business, etc. And then on the next page, it goes in a little bit about the project info itself, and, you know, the amount of funding that is being sought, if you've reached out to other institutions, etc. And then once you submit it, it goes through kind of the basics of other forms, making sure that everything is correct, and then it is sent out into the ether. And then the other piece of that is signing up on the email list. That is, again, a basic application, and it gets processed through, and you're put on a list where you're able to receive information about resources, etc. As it stands right now, it doesn't really get into the depth of, you know, being accessible to everybody who needs that accessibility. As discussed previously, you know, trying to cast a wide net, the methodology that M3X uses is one, agile, but also in this sort of process, we're looking at design thinking for the creation of this tool. And this uses empathy as the baseline for everything that the tool is going to stem from. It puts us at the vantage point, or essentially in the shoes of the end user, so that we can build it in order to best serve the people who are going to be using it. But this relies very heavily on participants' feedback, participants such as yourself. So we'll be sending out information regarding a survey that is going to be in English and Spanish, as well as a scheduler for Zoom meetings. You'll be able to choose the meeting that best suits your schedule. It's going to be about 15 to 30 minutes of discussing some of the details and just really hearing your stories on what you would like to see in this tool, how this can help you, so that we can create, again, the best tool possible for what we're doing currently.
Yeah, I mean, just to put a final point on it, this first instance of the tool, as Joanna mentioned before, you know, got the interest of the small businesses that wanted access to capital and the lenders that wanted notifications on what's going on. In the next version, we want to make sure that we're building with you and we're building for you. So that's why we critically need your input to determine exactly what features should be in version 2. And we're hoping that these sessions and the survey, which you will participate in, thank you very much, are going to provide that feedback, that input.
All right. Thank you all so much. This has been great, and hopefully everybody on the call and who will be tuning in takes that point home, that this is a tool meant to enable and empower our small businesses to be able to get access to the resources and capital that they need, as well all of our many stakeholders and partners that are out there that you are trying to connect with businesses and offer your services and assistance. This tool is for you to make those connections, and so we want this to be useful and valuable, and we can't not we but InStreetX can't develop the tool to be the most helpful and useful that it can be without hearing your feedback. And that'll be up to us to spread the word near and far and get this information out to folks. And we're thrilled. We're really excited to be able to share the final product with everyone soon. So we're going to send out the survey. It'll come from an email. Something to mention too, I think it'll come from this is technical, but it'll come from EDD info email, and so please check your spam folders. We might ping you a couple of times if it's coming from our personal emails, but go ahead and check that in a couple of days. And I think it was mentioned already, I think Rabia mentioned, but May 24th is a cutoff. So if you could take 6 minutes of your precious time and get us some information, it'll go a long way. And feel free to pass it along to your networks and let us know any feedback, any questions that you have. If you're watching this after this live session, email us. We are, Rabia mentioned the design process. We want to know the good, the bad, the ugly. That's how we can make this thing useful. So do you guys have anything to add before I'll open it up for questions or comments? If anyone has anything, do you guys have anything to add before we go into comments?
I think we're good.
Okay. How are the quails doing?
I have 6 of the 12 that are hatched right now.
Okay.
I'm very excited.
Good. Great. So let's see. Vernon, and Vernon is a great partner of ours. He helps us. He serves on the review team for our collateral assistance program. He's an SBDC director, and he is asking about how will this program protect any IP, intellectual property, or concept? And I've got some ideas, but I don't know if you guys want to jump in on the technical side, if you have some ideas.
I'm going to let Dr. Grandinson answer that question.
Yeah, so on the IP protection, for the projects themselves, like it's only going to be accessed by the closed set of individuals within the EDO office of New Mexico itself. And, we're hoping at some point to mitigate or reduce the gap between the project or the small business attempting to get access to capital for a project so that they can actually do it directly. So at some point, at any point at all, they don't have to share IP that is protected. All they have to share is like what their needs are.
Great, thank you so much. And I know with our version 1.0, we address that with exactly what you said, Ty, that it's a very simple amount of information, that it's basically contact information and high level info that it's not disclosing any of the IP issues. And then let's see, there's another question. I'm trying to, Vernon, if you want to type in maybe a shorter version of this initial one. I think the question is getting at how can, it's kind of getting around, and I'm glad you bring this point up, Vernon, because it's getting around oftentimes, especially I'm sure at the SBDC, they see projects that need extra help. They need a collaborative effort. It's not just that they can walk into a bank and they're going to get a check written to them in a loan. And so how can this tool facilitate collaboration, if any? And he's got another thought too, but do you guys have any insight into that?
I mean, for that point, I think it's going to be once a small business is actually registered interest in their desires or needs, we're going to automate notifications sent to staff at EDD and set to say that collaboration is going to go on EDD staff. So, so there's like no, at this point, technical workaround to enable just like online real-time collaboration between somebody who's looking for capital but needs work with somebody who can actually help them do that. That is not in scope right now.
Yeah, and to just jump in, yeah, Ty, you bring up a really good point, because there's so many small businesses that are looking for capital but may not know that they aren't ready for capital yet, right? So how do you identify those technical assistance providers, SBDC, SCORE, and other resources that are available? Maybe we put them in a bucket so that they can have a referral method. But I think, until we really start to have these conversations, it'll be interesting to see how this kind of, I would say, evolves, because again, folks may not understand that, yes, EDD has these capital access tools, but have you created your business plan, right? Do you know what a business plan is? Maybe you should go to an SBDC first and work with them, or work with someone at SCORE or another technical assistance provider before you go out there and seek capital. So I think this will be a very interesting exercise to really understand what the needs of those small businesses are, and then having some type of triage solution, if you will. Maybe put it in buckets as to, if you need technical assistance, this is where you can go. If you need capital, depending on the type of capital, this may be the best source for you.
Yeah. And it's not to say that it can't be done, it absolutely can, but currently within the scope of this project, that's probably a later date project that we'll discuss after we go through our discovery findings and what it is that small businesses truly need. And then once we're done with the Finance Finder tool, if New Mexico and everybody is ready to continue with different projects, we'll talk about that at that point.
And I just want to highlight that point, that why it's so important to hear from the technical assistance providers like our wonderful partners at SBDC that are working daily, tirelessly with businesses to figure out what information can we collect that's going to help inform them to figure out if it's a relevant project, or figuring out where they're entering into the whole scheme of things. Because Pierre is asking that question as well. Where did your question go, Pierre? That, kind of this idea around screening criteria, figuring out what questions we need to ask, so the tech assistance providers and the financial programs, the lenders can assess, is this a good fit initially? Should I take the time to follow up with this project? So we'll be really keen to hear your feedback from all of those organizations, so we can get that information and figure out what criteria needs to be collected.
I think that is a great point. Like, as much input as we can actually get from all the stakeholders and partners that help us define what a good screening question is, and then we can figure out, like, how do we automate and, like Dave was saying, put things into different buckets and send it to the right people. Like, that would be invaluable. So we look forward to all your stakeholders participating in the Zoom sessions and giving us exactly that information.
And feel free to jump in too, Jennifer. I'm just going through this list of questions. Pierre had another question. And I should mention Pierre Joseph is the director of the New Mexico Impact Investing Collaborative, and doing great work over there. And he's asking, is there a way to visualize the pipeline of these projects that are going to be coming through. And I think that's getting at kind of the collaborative question that was asked earlier. And so I'd throw that out to you guys. I think it's a great comment of figuring out where that could fit in.
Yeah, so there is a way to visualize it. And again, it sounds like a broken record, but it all depends upon like what bubbles up from the discovery sessions as a priority for small businesses and stakeholders. If visualizing the pipeline is something that everyone thinks that we actually need, then we will build it.
Great question.
Here's a question from Emily. She's asking, are these capital resources only available for projects, or are they available to help cover startup costs? And I'll take that. So Emily, we're trying to create a tool that would be available or be helpful to all stages of businesses for all types of capital. And so that includes startups, includes businesses looking to expand. We're not limiting any eligibility based on the uses of funding. That ultimately will be determined by the organizations and the resources that you're connecting with. How it'll kind of work is that you would fill out the query or submit the information, and then the criteria that we were just talking about, and then that gets sent out to this list or to the organizations, and then if it's relevant to them, if it's a fit for their program, they would contact you. As well, on the reverse, you'll get their information too. It's kind of twofold. And I know the details are being worked out, but broadly functioning. Jennifer, do you see any questions?
It's finally you figured out how to see them.
Okay.
Sorry. I have just a comment from Brett. He says, by the way, I have 30 years experience in accounting software industry, including being an executive officer of 4 different startups. So that's from Brett. And then now from Cassie is, does this work for those that are nonprofits or looking to start up nonprofits?
Should.
Yes, I'm thinking yes.
Yes, kind of the same answer, Cassie, that we're not putting any limitations on eligibility. It'll be determined by the resources. And most of our efforts encompass supporting nonprofits as well. Nonprofits are a big part of the economy.
So there's a continued comment from Brett. He says, first of all, if we were in person, I would give you a kiss. Secondly, I'm a county commissioner of Colfax County and will want to help you get the word out in my area, so I'm requesting more training on this app. Thirdly, I would like to see that you go beyond accessing capital, including grants, forms, all sources. I believe this needs to be automated, and there are simply too many sources in the process and can be overwhelming.
You said that's from Brett?
That's from Brett as well.
Brett as well, okay. I mean, part of this is, like we mentioned, we are going to be having those, the survey and the Zoom meetings, but we're also going to be looking for some individuals who are interested in being beta testers and kind of following us along the way so that we can continue this process of, kicking this back to the end user, friends being one of them possibly, and going through and making sure that we are, doing all the pieces that are needed and seeing if there's any oversight that we may have missed, etc. So I'm excited.
We have another question from Dora. How is this tool different from Fundit, or is it to augment Fundit as well? Is it designed to augment Fundit?
I'll take that question. And hi, Dora. Dora's a good partner of ours in the central part of the state. So Dora's asking about our project or our program called Fundit, and that is where we're bringing together the funding agencies, state and federal, as well as COG directors, pretty much all of the programs with money that are able to finance public economic development projects. And they're very similar. The concept of that program is very similar to this one. This one is specifically looking at businesses and nonprofits, kind of in the private sector. Funded is more focused on economic development projects that are public and collaborative in nature. An example might be the revitalization of a downtown, that there's a transportation component, there's a historical preservation component, where we're needing to bring on numerous agencies on board to be able to get it done. But I love that you asked that question, Dora, because I know that M Street X team and numerous other stakeholders, this question continues to come up of what is the overlap between this initiative and then the public space. And so I think that it's a great point to raise, in the hopes that maybe version 3.0 is combining these efforts. And so I think it's a really exciting thing to continue thinking about. And this is the first step of seeing how this goes and looking at maybe how we combine them down the road. And I should acknowledge Alex Greenberg on the recovery team. I see he's on the call, and he is co-lead on Fund It. So, Alex.
We have another question from Pierre. I'm also curious how this tool maps onto the existing capital continuum and need: grants, debt, financing, or equity.
I think this is getting at a similar question that was raised earlier. It's not going to be focused on just one type of funding, that it will be hopefully encompassing all the different varieties of funding sources. I hope that answers your question here. If it doesn't, feel free to type in or elaborate.
So we have a question from David. Is this for business financing only? Will this tool also be available for procurement for construction?
I'm taking that as, is this going to be a tool for a company to look at procurement opportunities? I don't know if anybody's understanding that in a different way, but in that regard, this will just look at financing opportunities, as well as business assistance, technical assistance, resources. We're not going to get into procurement opportunities. We can connect you. So if you do want to reach out to our department, we can definitely make some connections to folks that are working in that realm.
It looks like Vernon has talked about startup funding, risk not taken by lenders, his comment.
We'll look at that, Vernon.
All right, we have a comment from Cassie. The private versus public project is a great distinction. Perhaps adding an opportunity for businesses to upload 3-minute video clips explaining their project would be a good addition to the application. Thinking along the lines of the Shark Tank pitch tank theory, Fund It project pitch. That's a good.
That's great, Kathy. That has come up with Fund It as well. So again, there's an overlap, but we've gotten suggestions to do video pitches in that program. So thanks for bringing that up. And let's take I'm looking at time. We've got time for a few more questions. Maybe, I think there might be 2 more.
I want to make sure I'm not repeating. Will there be a screening criteria for businesses to potentially weed out who is not capital ready? Did we already ask that? Okay.
And then I see a comment from Sandra who works with cooperatives in the state, and she's mentioning another plea that this tool be available to not only commercial businesses, but cooperatives, nonprofits, and expanding the scope. So thanks, Sandra, for providing that comment, and particularly focused on underserved communities.
I think we've asked most of the questions.
Okay. All right, and let's see. Oh, and then Josue Olivares down with the South Valley EDC is asking, will this presentation be shared? So we will get this presentation out, Josue, and as well, we're going to ask you for your time to fill out a survey and get your feedback. We'd love to hear your feedback and what's going on in South Valley. And I'm seeing questions come in. So if we don't get to your questions, we'll follow up. One more, David is asking, he's asking about public projects. So again, I think maybe this will come out in the discovery phase of figuring out how this tool is going to parlay or be a partner with this other group that we have funded that's looking at public projects. So it's going to be really interesting because David's asking, would this be a good fit for a school looking for funding? So again, really, really interesting. And that's why we need your feedback, David, and we need all of our organizations to get us some input on how we can craft this so it'll be useful.
There's another comment from Cassie, or some input. Oftentimes getting our businesses to complete some tasks leaves us with loose ends. Could you explore an option for local EDOs to apply information on behalf of a project? That's a good one.
Yeah, that's great, Cassie. Thank you for that.
And then she also,
oh, go ahead.
She has a follow-up, so then we can ensure that they receive the information and can also help them walk through the process if needed.
Great. Thank you. And thank you all too for being patient with this format of submitting these comments into this text box. Unfortunately, we can't be in person and hear your comments directly, but really appreciate that you're using this format. So thanks so much, Cassie and David and everybody that submitted input. So, do you guys have anything to wrap up with? I think that concludes the questions and comments.
I would just say, to the extent that we can get as many actors within your entrepreneurial ecosystem participating on the survey and Zoom calls, we can make this tool a more robust, meaningful tool. And I think it'll get to a lot of the questions and also solutions that so many are asking.
Yeah, and you know, we look forward to speaking with all of you. I'm really excited about this project, and I'm excited about what we can build with your feedback.
Ditto to what Dave and Rabia said.
And I'm just gonna say a plug too for the recovery team that we just hired, Jennifer, Alex, Felicia, and the newest member that will be joining MNerd, Shawnee Harvey, who's the Jedi coordinator. This is the power, this is the capacity that we need to actually, Ty mentioned, we do need some people and some power to be able to get some of this done. So I'm really appreciative that and grateful that they're on our team and helping to do this. And thank you. We're so excited to work with MStreetX.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you all.